Hello, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Sue Lunt, and it's a pleasure to be here with you today on behalf of both Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare and the Tufts Health Plan. My webinar topic this morning is forming healthy habits, a topic near and dear to my own heart as a practicing health and wellness coach. But before I get going any further, I want to make sure to invite you to all open up your chat windows if you've not already done so. Please feel free to make comments, to leave me questions as I go through this webinar. I'll do my best to weave them in. I want to make this as relative to what you came to hear as possible. So with that, consider what did bring you to this webinar? Because it's true, maybe that tagline, we all know what we should be doing to be healthy. For those people out there in that beautiful scenery, hiking, feeling vigorous. So why don't we do it? Well, it just might be our unintentional habits. And I'll discuss. How do I happen to be talking to you about this today? You can see that I'm a nurse. I have to confess, I'm pretty sure my healthiest habits were not found in my nursing days. I have been in the wellness industry for the last 15 years, and it is here that I've discovered a passion for talking about healthy habits because it truly has been now shown to keep us healthy over time. What do I mean by that? To grow old and be able to do all the things that you want to do, kind of what we all, I think, want in life. So, there's certain evidence that certain habits make a difference. Where did I get that evidence? From becoming a certified wellness coach. And the LMC stands for a lifestyle medical certificate. The American College of Lifestyle Medicine and Well Coaches over the last few years put together a course just for coaches that brought together the evidence of what keeps us healthy over time. If you've never heard of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, I encourage you to look them up if you're interested in what keeps you healthy. You can find them at www.americanlifestylecollege.com. All right, let's turn to my first slides. Why is it that we care about healthy habits? Because 80% of chronic disease is due to our lifestyle choices. That's pretty incredible when you think about it, right? 80%. What do we mean by chronic disease? Or what do I mean by chronic disease? High blood pressure, heart disease, cancer, the kinds of things, diabetes, that can really make a difference in what we do. So 80% due to our lifestyle choices. And I want to think of lifestyle choices as I go through this as your habits. This was first said by Dr. David Katz. He's the director of the Yale University Preventative Health Center and has been working in this area for decades. He is the past president of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, and I'll be drawing from some of his work in that regard. So I said in the beginning, maybe it's our unintentional habits that are keeping us from doing what we know we should do. Because good habits are just as addictive as bad habits and much more rewarding. So I'm hoping I'll convince you that they're really worth our focus, especially in challenging times. Aristotle said long ago, we are what we repeatedly do. So excellence then is not an act, but a habit. Kind of cool stuff. We have more control than we think, just by repetition. So I want you to consider, how have your habits changed or morphed over the last year or two? We've all gone through an incredible change in globally. And were your habits influenced by it? Just make a note, because whether they were influenced in the good way or the negative way. I hope by the end of this webinar, you'll feel like you can take control and create the lifestyle habits you really want to. This is my agenda. I'm going to talk about how habits are created. I'm going to leave you with some tips and tools to create and maintain good habits. and daily habits that are known to impact health and happiness. Again, a lot of the science came from the American College of Lifestyle Medicine and Well Coaches, where I'm certified through. I'm hoping this is what you came to hear. Feel free to add anything in the chat box, something you really want to make sure I cover. Please leave it in the chat box below. All look good? All right, let's keep going. So let's start with how are habits created? I really want you to take away this one top word, repetition. It's what we do continually that creates our habits. What we do continually when we get some reward, whether that reward is positive or negative, doesn't matter. The body looks at it as a reward. Do you remember way back when, in early days in grade school, I'm not sure if they still teach it anymore, but Pavlov's dog. Think about the reward of getting something. You repeat the habit. So why does that work? How does that work? It's because in our brains, there are millions of neurons. And these millions of neurons are running around making millions of connections. And after they've made the same connection a number of times, they remember it. And it gets cemented in something called the autonomic nervous system. Again, why is that important? It's important because it's not something you have to really, you don't even have to think about it when it's in your autonomic nervous system. For example, what's your morning routine? Do you even think about it? You get up, do you go get a coffee, or do you think of learning to brush your teeth? When did that become habit? It's something we don't even think about anymore because it's cemented in our autonomic nervous system. But the other thing I want to bring to your attention here is the autonomic nervous system, and where habits are cemented. The decision-making part of our brain is in a different section. So you really have to call it out if you want to make a change. Hopefully I'll make that clear as I go through. All right. So who's been talking about habits? There's a number of people you can turn to. I said I'll be pulling a lot from what I learned through my training in Well Coaches and through the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. But James Clear wrote a book in 2018 that's been getting a lot of press, a lot of good attention. It's called he talks about how our habits form. The name of his book is Atomic Habits, and any of you who are really interested in this area, I'd encourage you to pick it up. It's a good read. He breaks it down into 4 parts in terms of how our habits are formed. There's a cue, something we hear, see, touch, that creates a craving for something. That craving, you know what behavior you want to do, so you respond and you're rewarded. But it doesn't matter whether it's good or bad. The reward cements the habit. Prior to James Clear, there'd been a book out there in 2012 called The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. What we do, why we do, what we do in life and business. This was back in 2012. And out of this book, many people in the habit era were talking about something called the habit loop. What is the habit loop? He identified there's a cue that triggers the routine, something you do automatically when you get this cue. So for example, what do you do late afternoon if you're tired? What's your routine? Do you get up, take a walk around, breath of fresh air? Do you grab for something to eat? Do you stretch? What triggers it? Is it the late afternoon? Is it your routine? And how are you rewarded? In order to create a habit, you need to figure out a good cue with a good trigger and a good routine that you feel good about. Questions? Don't hesitate to let me know. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how you figure out what that cue or trigger is. Out of the work of a number of people in the habit area has come the most common things that trigger us to habits are our environment and the time of day. So think about that. When do you do the habits that you like? When do you do the habits that you don't? You have to interfere and bring it to the decision-making part of your brain, out of the autonomic nervous system, if you want to make a change. The other thing can cue or trigger us is emotions and even others, or are there certain thought patterns that just keep running through your head? I'd like to give you an example. I share with you that I'm a health coach from one of my clients' work, because I think it might help in the area. We are all very familiar kind of with the environment and time of day. But what about when we're trying to get at stress or thought patterns that we can't seem to break? I had a woman who came to me back a while ago, and she wanted to lose weight. That was her initial reason for coming, and she had some success. But she was having trouble making it stick. And we worked together for quite a long time. About 6 months in, she realized that although she had very good results at times and not so good results, she was getting stuck. And we went to do some more work, and she came up with stress and her reaction in stressful situations, anxiety, things she would say that she didn't want to say. And it turned out one of her triggers was someone who was really close to her. And she needed to be able to change this behavior. She went through and through, and finally, a lot of habit research will talk about calling it out, not meaning directly to the person. She had to call it out to herself. When I see so-and-so, I am going to do X. What she came up with, and that's the key. If you want to change a habit, you have to come up with it yourself. You want to say, she came up with saying delete. And so delete was put into her conscious mind saying, when I see this person and this thought pattern comes out, I'm going to say delete. Now, she wasn't going to say it to the person, obviously. So she practiced in a number of situations. Anyway, long story short, she came back to see me about 4 to 6 weeks after we put this into play. And I started my talk with her my call with her as I always do, what went well? And she said, delete, delete, delete. I said, what do you mean, delete, delete, delete? She said, every time I finally got it into my head that I would think that when I saw X. And you won't believe it. I've been invited this weekend to their place, and I'm really excited and not nervous. And this went on to help her in other areas. The key is you've got to practice, but the really key is figuring out what that cue or trigger is. Thank you for your comments. So again, with James Clear in this most recent book, The Atomic Habits, he says to create a new habit, say something you really wanted to do. Why don't we do what we want to do? One thing we know that our senses are very key. What we see is likely to really bring in the forefront of our mind. So you want to make it obvious, make it attractive. Say you want to start your day with a walk. What might you do? This has to be in your environment. I'm just going to throw out a suggestion here. Maybe it's your walking shoes at the door. Maybe it's your jacket right there in case it's cool. Maybe it's a note on your phone, but it has to be obvious. You want to make it easy. And then if this worked, you keep repeating. And before you know it, you'll just automatically put the shoes behind your door. Because again, it will be cemented in the autonomic part of your brain. But how quickly does that happen? I can't give you that answer. There's lots of different theories out there, but it happens when it happens. Trust that if you have the right cue, you make it obvious, keep it attractive, it will happen. All right. So we think about habits. Why do we even care? Some people say, oh, I don't want to be in the habits. It could restrict me. I don't want to, I can't change. I've been doing this forever, And I keep saying, habits do not restrict freedom. They create it. I almost want to say like on that commercial, what? But it's true. Consider, without good financial habits, you're always searching for that next dollar potentially. Without good health habits, how's your energy throughout the day? So you have to consider really how to adjust your environment to make this new habit easier. I'm going to refer back to part of it is making it easy, making it simple, calling it out. There was work done back in May 2011. Dr. Michael Pantalon from Yale School of Medicine, author of a book called Instant Influence, how to influence anything quickly. And he had something called your secret sauce. And I have used it. It's been part of our coaching routine. I learned about Dr. Pantalon's work through coaching. He comes out of the field of addiction. So it's the same thing with creating habits. What is it that makes you want to do something? So those of you who are here to really try to do something, please take a piece of paper out and just write down, why might you change? Why are you doing this? Why would you like to make this one of your habits? For that reason, why are you making any changes at all? What would happen if you did this? Think about what your life would be like if you made this change. Picture yourself doing it. I want you to feel the control when you get under why you might want to do this. You have to feel it in you, and then you'll establish the kind of cue that'll help you make this happen. But really, habits are in our control, but they're not easy because both the good ones and the bad ones can get cemented. You got to choose what makes sense for you. It has to fit in your environment. What's a great way to start? Really start with something very realistic. What one small thing could you do that you know, if you started doing it regularly, it would make a difference? Really, maybe you've always said, oh, I really want to eat healthy. Well, where are you going to start? Maybe menu planning. Maybe you plan 2 nights a week. I'm absolutely healthy. Can you do that? What do you need to put in place to make the odds of this happening? Maybe you set aside Sunday to shop. Make sure that the healthy food's there, because it's more likely to happen if you open your refrigerator and there it is. Just consider your environment. It doesn't have to be food, whether it's food or running or starting a yoga practice. Consider your environment. What could work? Because the thing about coming at you from a coach's perspective is coaches really believe that the individual knows what they need to do. And I truly have come to believe that and see it in my practice. Although we can tell people what to do as nurses and medical profession, it only matters in terms of if you believe it's going to happen and what you can do. So who else? If I'm hoping that from that little exercise, if you came to me hoping to create a certain habit, that you've got the beginnings of it. You got your secret sauce at least started. These things don't happen overnight, but they do happen with practice. If you really come to this and you're looking for just general information on where is the evidence, I said earlier, I came from it through my coaching work. David Katz, who started the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, has gone on to establish a global health initiative called the True Health Initiative. Again, you can look it up. And here are the things that are evidence-based that help us maintain health over time. The first one is known as fingers, avoiding toxins, especially tobacco and excess alcohol. Forks, minimally processed food, adding more plants into what we eat. Feet, regular physical activity. We've heard it over and over again. It really does make a difference. Sleep. Is there anyone who just doesn't feel outstanding after a good night's sleep? Stress needs to be manageable. And then the final one, and boy, did we feel it over this last year with COVID, love, meaningful relationships, connections, how important that is to our overall life. These are the 6 core principles that have been shown to add years to life, but even more important to that, life to years. So if you haven't found anything, think about how your habits could encourage you to do one of these more regularly. Whatever is necessary for you. Just for general purpose here, because of the environment over the last year with COVID, I'm going to take us through, if we chose stress, let's try to make stress more manageable. Where might we start? You first have to start with where you're at, whether it's your environment or your stress. So I'm going to ask you to consider, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being low, 10 being top of your game, how stressed do you consider yourself? Just write down a number between 1 and 10. 1 being low, very little stress, 10 being, oh my goodness, I am just stressed out. Most of us are somewhere in that spectrum. But we know it's one of the key things to help us keep healthy over time. So when we're doing everything else right and things aren't working, as I said with my client example, then you have to say, how big a priority is creating a routine for manageable stress to you? Same scale, 1 to 10, 1 being low, I'd like to do it, but it's not a very big priority in my life right now. To 10 being, I know I need to get this under control. Where are you? All right, I want you to consider, what is a realistic first step? Going back to the example I gave earlier, my client said, just going to say delete. She thought just saying delete could delete it. She had to practice that, and it ended up not one delete being enough. Delete, 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 without saying it out loud, but in her head. How do you make this first step easy? You prepare for it. Many of us want to go right into the action stage. Happens all the time with smokers, for example. You've got to prepare the environment. It's very often something like smoking at a certain time of day, or you're geared to do things based on that. You've got to take the time to prepare the environment if you want to make a change. What is that first step? It has to be easy. You know that from Atomic Habits. And then you have to consider, how do you adjust your environment to make this happen regularly? One thing I can tell you for sure is that through work that I've seen to the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, through my work in Well Coaches and their publishings, healthy habits feel good. We all know when we are doing things we know that keep us healthy. Now we actually have some science to show that they add years, certain habits add years to our life and life to our years. So step 1 is connect with what you want and hold yourself accountable to what's happening with you in your environment. I truly believe each of us knows what we could do to give the right habit a nod. Call it out loud. And then sometimes it's very helpful to write it down. And if you really want to be held accountable, get someone to do it with you. That can be particularly helpful. If you want to start going to, a regular walk each day, who's going to help you? Call me at such and such time. Make sure I'm up and walking. You've got to cultivate the capacity. You can't have smoke for years and all of a sudden, well, some people do it and just stop. But generally, in my experience, people who really set up the environment, they really have to change it if they've been smokers for a long time to make it easier for them. Because certain triggers in that autonomic nervous system will just keep you there. You have to ask yourself why you want to do it at all. If it's not important to you, chances are the reward won't be enough. Although you might be surprised. After you do things a certain amount of time, it will become habit. But you've got to prepare your environment to make that type of thing happen. So I hope this is helpful. I really want to leave you with the fact that you can impact your overall health over time by what you do each day. And I want to end with words from Robert Schuller, because it's been such a challenging couple of years. And I don't want you, if your habits had changed, like I asked in the beginning, and they would, I hope they went positively. Many people did start good things with COVID, more time to walk or to meditate, but others slipped. And just remember, it's just as easy to do both, but by calling it out, you can make the change. And remember that tough times never last, but tough people do. I hope this was helpful to you. I'm happy to entertain any questions. I think you have to put it in the box, Naomi. If you can put it in I don't think I can unmute you. I think you have to put it in the chat box if that's possible. Okay. Good. I'm glad that was helpful. She was someone I remember so well because it just went on to make such a difference, positive way in other areas. And with the weight, just remember the first small thing you can do. Maybe it's you cut your portion in half. Maybe it's you add one more serving of vegetables, but look at what you know you'd like to do and create an environment to make one change. Once you get success in one little change, it's easier to take it bigger. So start out small, something very manageable. Good. I'm so glad. Yeah. Really stress, especially what we've all been through over the last year, can be, it really can affect our systems in not the best way. But by repeating what we really want to do, calling it out and setting a small manageable goal, you will have success. Okay, trying to make sure that I have answered all the questions. I think I have. It's been a pleasure to talk to you about this topic. Have a great day. Thank you.